Hi, everyone. It's John Davis with Signature. Welcome back to one of our Signature Spotlights today, the LinkedIn Live series. I'm honored today to be with Clark Willcox. If you don't know Clark, you're really in for a treat. Clark comes from the industry. He's got over, almost 15 years of industry experience. He's worked for some of the biggest staffing firms in the business, has started his own recruiting business, and today speaks all across the country in both podcast formats, seminars, and conferences about helping recruiters get better in today's market. So, Clark, welcome to the session. So glad to have you.
John, thanks for having me here. We always have great conversations, so I'm excited to have another one.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, so I met you, I guess I met you earlier this year at a conference in Ohio.
Yeah.
And when we met, I realized here's a guy that's really got depth. He comes from the industry, he knows how to run a desk, he knows how to run a branch. And somewhere between knowing and doing that, you got to where you are today. You found a digital recruiter. Tell me a little bit about that story. Why did you end up here?
Yeah, it's a wild journey like most people, right? I fell into recruiting. Aerotech called me about a job. I didn't want that job. They're like, "Have you thought about being a recruiter?" I was like, "I have no idea what that is." Right? It's a story told over and over again. I was in LA. I needed a base salary. They said that and uncapped commission. I was like, "Sign me up." And I don't think I really quite figured out what staffing even was until after I made a few placements. Like the go to work, forklift drivers, general labor type stuff. Is no drug screen, no background check. I was like, next thing I knew, I had like 3 or 4 starts my first week, and I was off
Wow.
and running. I'm sure they lasted maybe all of 2 days. It's nothing crazy, but it got me in the game, and then trying to kind of refine. And it was just this whole world. It was I started at Aerotech. I think it was the first place that really invested in me as as a person and trying to build my career up and the training. And I'm forever in debt for them for that. And it's easy to bash on big staffing companies and everything else, but man, the training, I just followed it to the T. I just showed up. I just did what they told me. And for a few years, and the recruiting piece came a little bit easier to me. I got promoted about 8 months. I hit 10K in spread in about 5 months. So like I had a knack for that, and there was just kind of following the strategy. But then I got into sales, and the reason I started digital recruiter goes back to really my first couple of years in sales at Aerotech, where I got my butt handed to me out there in the field. It's hard. Like it's hard being going outbound, going out to clients, managing accounts, getting new accounts, managing recruiters. I thought, oh, I'm likable. I'll have an easy time managing recruiters, right? That's not how it works. It's not how it worked for me. So I think just having respect for how hard staffing is, especially if you're trying to do sales and manage a team and get new business and manage and grow accounts in the light industrial commercial space, especially in East LA, right?
Mhm.
And the competition I face there, I just have a ton of respect for how hard the job is. And so when I was introduced, I left on my own. I hit my all-time high in 2017, and that was the day I decided to quit. I was on the trajectory and up and up, and I was grinding. And I just realized like their incentives weren't things that I cared about. And that's okay, right? It works for some people, it didn't work for me. So I made a decision to leave at the end of the year. And I didn't really know what I was going to do. And I never thought I'd be back in recruiting, but I just kind of, I was talking with someone earlier this week. It's like the recruiting is kind of like the mafia. Like just when you think you're out, like they pull you back in. And that's kind of what happened to me. And I spent a couple years bouncing around. I moved from LA to Columbus, Ohio, and I got introduced to someone that I had met through a mastermind that started a LinkedIn lead gen agency. Now, mind you, I never used LinkedIn at Aerotech. So this was all new to me. I had like 100 connections, all family and friends, right? Nothing crazy. And he was using automation, and he was working with people, some influencers that were leveraging content on LinkedIn, and some people just like normal people like you and me that were getting 10, 20, 30 meetings a month from LinkedIn. I was like, what is this magic? It felt like sorcery. And it's back
Mhm.
to 2020, and I was like, wait, there's recruiters everywhere on LinkedIn. Like I had no idea. I was so naive. And so I was like, well, why wouldn't everyone do this? I was like, I wish I had this at Aerotech. So that was the foundation of digital recruiter was I wish I had the access to automation and content when I was at Aerotech. It would have removed so much time from me chasing people and started more attracting the right people in my ecosystem, right? To give me more time for like kind of bottom of the funnel, closer to the money activities. And I just thought, man, like the power of the digital tools and the brand nowadays can actually free up time to actually do what matters, which is the human part of recruiting and sales. And so I did that for a couple of years, launched Digital Recruiter at the end of 2021, and here we are 4 years later.
Wow, that's great. You said something that really caught my ear. You got your foundational training at a big box shop like Aerotech.
Yep.
And how do you help coach recruiters that don't have that experience? Because I see a lot of flailing with folks that think social is the only way to go and they can go make and build a business that way. How do you bridge the gap from knowledge of the basics of the business to execution, leveraging technology and digital? But if the basics aren't there, how do you fill that gap?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think number one, it's been up to me to identify where people are in their journey. And I think that's where I learned when I first started this. I was a little naive to automation content's great. Everyone should be using it. But what I didn't have click until until a few months, a year into starting Digital Recruiter is not everyone has the foundational training. So if you don't have that, it's not going to actually solve the root cause. Now, if you do have the foundational training, you just don't know how to kind of market yourself and kind of package up what it is that you do well. I mean, LinkedIn is low hanging fruit for you, right? Marketing is low hanging
Mhm.
fruit because you have that foundational. But if you don't have it, what you're missing out on is you're missing out on the daily meetings I had with my manager, the weekly meetings I had with my branch manager one-on-ones, all the dozens of meetings I went out with the top performers at my office that had been doing it 10, 15 years, and I got to see how they operated. All the mentorship I got at Urtech, you don't have any of that. And I got all of
Mhm.
that. And it's not like I was perfect. It's not like I was a top producer at Airtech in sales or anything like that. I wasn't, right? And I think that's why one of the things that makes this so powerful. Number one, I'm not afraid to admit that I had a world-class MPS score, but I found the grind of keep building, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 3 steps forward, 4 steps back sometimes in staffing, right? You lose a huge account, they move out of your territory, different things, right? It's just being honest with myself of like that was a grind and I got through it because I didn't try to reinvent the wheel. And
Mhm.
so many people are trying to do that. They're like, oh, I can make a bunch of money without spending anything because it's a low overhead, really amazing margins in the recruiting. And it's almost like you're disrespecting the process and the grind. And so you have to understand if you're just going to get into this because I can make a bunch of money, well, yeah, but you're competing with people that, maybe are money motivated, but that are just better. They have more mentorship. They're better at this. They're going on more meetings than you. They know how to talk to people. They've gone more reps and everything else. So I've seen a lot of people kind of back their way into like a $200,000 a year direct hire business, but they have no idea how to replicate any of the success, why people buy from them or anything. It's like, and if you don't have that mentorship, you're missing out. So kind of what I've seen is there's typically two paths for people, right? That work and invest in kind of coaching, consulting. It's like, help me get up and running on LinkedIn, create that top of funnel piece for me, help me out digital, messaging, help me with my marketing. But once I get someone on the phone, I actually know what to do. I know how to qualify good recs, qualify clients, and how to say no. There's that path. But then there's the path that's like, I don't even know what you're talking about. I just work on a job description and anything's fillable, right? It's like, no, that you kind of need more of that sales mentorship. And that's
Mhm.
okay. We all need it, right? To get to certain levels in this.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, it's a simple business. It's just not easy to execute over time.
Correct.
Yeah. And I think folks underestimate the level of execution that's required to uh, build a process, not just an event, have one good month or have one good quarter or even one good year, but how to really take that to a true career in the space.
Absolutely.
And so when I met you and kind of heard some of the message that you preach out there, I resonated with it. And I wish more people could get what you're offering. Talk a little bit about this LinkedIn Sprint process that you put together that really gives people a fast lane into their profile magnification, if you will.
Yeah, it's I'll give an example for this morning. I had a staffing owner reach out to me on LinkedIn, automated my connection request with him, sent a general introduction, just introducing myself, like nothing crazy, but he's able to look at my LinkedIn profile, my content, and get a good glimpse of who I am, what I'm about, what I do to solve problems. LinkedIn. So he's like, "Hey, we'd love to hop on a call and see how you could help my agency." Now I see his LinkedIn. There's no banner. There's no about section. He's been doing this over 15 years, right? I can't figure out how he's won or helped his clients from his LinkedIn. So immediately I know I can help impact his LinkedIn profile because I've had clients, some of my one-on-one clients just last month. We've revamped their LinkedIn profile for them, and they've gotten inbound leads and clients and roles to work on within their niche just by making that fix. Literally from
Wow.
call 1 to call 2, he was like, I got a new client just from fixing up the profile fix that you guys did for me. Right. So you don't know If you're not in the game that way, you just don't know. I've had clients get $70,000 fees and searches from just fixing the profile, no automation, no content. So like that's the first thing, really demonstrating how he's been successful. I could see from this prospect's website, he's probably got SEO pretty dialed in. They have a pretty solid referral network, right? They're in the accounting and finance space, which is desperate for candidates right now. I mean, every accounting role could be filled in America, and I think there'll still be 30,000 openings. I think this is a
Wow.
stat that I was given by a recruiter, but there's no content, there's no link. Like I know that whole market's on LinkedIn, right? But he's not leveraging it at all. And I'm assuming he's not using automation because he only had like 400 connections. But he could build a flywheel, whether it's candidates or clients, to automate 200 connection requests per week. Say he connects with 50 of them per week, right? That's over 3,000 in a year. If he starts posting content, he's getting in front of them as a sales touch point. We can interview him, create a month worth of content, carousels, everything else, get that go-to-market approach out there. So his current network could know him, but he's building that network and he's showing people in that space what they've done successfully already. Because I could tell, like they're probably a multi-million-dollar staffing firm, right? But you can't. If I'm a prospect of theirs on LinkedIn, I don't know that, and I guarantee they're spending on recruiter seats and everything else like that, right? So it's like people spend all this money on LinkedIn, but they don't leverage it, and it's an incredible marketing platform for you, and you're spending all this stuff. So we fix this profile. I get them up and running on LinkedIn automation, maybe leveraging Sales Navigator, build an account list. Like, hey, what are the 50 accounts or companies that we want to go after? Or if it's candidates, right, go after that. You can automate that. And then when you post content that's relevant to the pain points and challenges of that audience, right, talk about reasons why people buy from you, right, give them insights since they haven't heard. Well, if you get that going, your new connections see all your content for the first 2 weeks you're connected. So if they like, comment, or read more, guess what's going to happen? You're going to pop up in their feed over and over again. Mm-hmm. So you're able to just blitz the market with just you, right? And I get all the time, man, I see your stuff everywhere. But like, I don't feel like I'm working any harder than anyone else. I'm just consistent with getting stuff out there. My clients are just consistent. I don't care if we get 4 likes, 40 likes, or 400 likes. Typically, actually like getting less likes right, on content, but it's more about, to your point, that consistency, right? And kind of being, as our friend Keely Flood says, being pleasantly persistent, right? And if you do that with content, it means that you're not badgering people in the DMs too, and that's also another big win. So we fix up his LinkedIn profile, we get automation going, content going. He'd have thousands of new connections every year, hundreds of thousands of impressions, if not millions, on his content within his target ICP, right? And then who knows what he's able to capture within that, right? But his follow-up leads are from likes, comments, profile views, everything else that people are starting to post, but no one's following up, right? It's never been easier to follow up if you know how to kind of create that momentum, create that awareness.
You talk a lot about automation, and the industry talks about it, but I've also heard you say there are things you should not automate. How do you decide?
Yeah, I mean, you shouldn't automate 7 messages in the LinkedIn inbox. I would say if you're doing business development, no more than 3. But be intentional. It all starts with building out being targeted with your list. Too many people just build a big list and they're just spray and pray. Right. And that's where you get like, why did I get this message? This isn't for me. Right. So the more work you do on the front end with your automation and your content, the better results you're going to get. And that sounds familiar because it's the same thing about qualifying a rec. Right. The more you do to qualify a rec and a client on the front end, the easier it's going to be to close that rec. It's the same process with outreach, with automation, with content, right? Being intentional, making sure that your profile is aligned with your list, right? That people can see just from your profile why you would reach out and want to connect with them, right? You shouldn't even have to have a connection message if you're doing business development on LinkedIn. If you send a connection request to a potential hiring manager, like that's how dialed in your list and profile should be, right? And so I have people that just run automation campaigns. All they do is connect only. They don't even send a message in automation, or sometimes they'll just introduce themselves, and that's the only message that they'll send. That's all I've done for 3 years, and it's worked. And I get inbound leads weekly, and I have a ton of people that I can follow up with day to day because I'm looking to drive conversations. I call it with automation. You want to farm at scale, and too many people are trying to hunt at scale, which is trying to sell to everyone versus farm. Invite people into your ecosystem. Give them the option to say no. They say no, no big deal. Some people, this person didn't say this or didn't say that. I'm like, I don't care. I'm focused on the people that are engaging, right? Because I
Sure.
have enough volume. And then within that, that's where you kind of hunt within the ecosystem. But then that's a different skill set to develop of how to go back and forth, how to have conversations, right? How to meet people where they're at. Well, there's 100 different ways that could happen, right? But that's the real work. And that's real business development. Because then if you have 100 of those, well, over the course of the year, you need what, 5, 10, 15 of those to be
Mhm.
clients, and you could be $1 million biller or add $1 million to your desk.
Yeah, it doesn't take that many when you really boil it down. Well, we're coming up, to the last quarter of the year, so inevitably it's a pretty good, usually seasonality wise, a pretty good quarter for staffing
Yep.
to see some jumps in demand. But what advice would you give folks as they close out this year? They look back at 2025, the customers that got them where they are. What should they be focusing on? What communication should they have with their current customers, and then what should they be planning to make sure 26 gets started well?
Yeah, it's a great question. Number one, get as many meetings with CFOs as you can,
Mm,
because now is the season where they look at the budget and they're like, "Well, we got to cut spend." What do they look at cutting first? Right? They disvalue the benefits of staffing and recruiting firms a lot of the time. Well, we got to go internal. We got to do this. So if you're not getting out in front and making business cases as to the value and why your value and the ROI they get from working with you is that much greater and not worth cutting, then you're at risk with big accounts. I mean, I think that's number one, right? You got to keep the business you have, but the way I look at it, the way I coach my clients is you want to show your clients your work. Right now, you don't want to complain about how much work it is, all that, but they should know the efforts that you're putting in behind the scenes. I think too many recruiters try to put everything in a bow for clients versus like, no, you want to show them how much you're
show the
putting in
work.
for them.
Yeah.
Show the work, show the value, track turnover rates, if there's been an improvement there, or anything that you've done with, salary or, bill rates, like whatever value was there, right? Hey, this was the problem before us, and now it's not a problem anymore, right? And get testimonials from your champions and the managers that you're working with, right? Really build
Yes.
that internal business case, that case study. I would say that's number one, right? Make sure do you know where you stand and embrace that tension, right? Embrace the awkward questions, embrace your clients not knowing the value because it's your job to do that. I mean, every day I feel like I'm working on stuff, my own internal collateral, I feel like changes every single week and all that. Like I constantly have to go out and vouch for myself in the market. I know we do great work, but I have clients and old clients that maybe aren't updated with like what our capabilities are now, right? And those things improve. And as I'm sure you have direct hire firms that come to you, right, and implement
Mhm.
staffing because you can cover so much for them. And I know I've referred you people that now can actually do staffing next day where they weren't able to before, right? Think about those clients that, so those types of people, like, do your clients know that you can do that? You have those capabilities, right? That they're partnered with a signature. And it's like, there's a whole other stream of value that we can add. Right. And so get meetings with your current clients. Don't just take the holidays and assume they're taking the holidays. It's a great time to catch up, send thank you notes, send
Mhm.
gifts, all that. Get your meetings with your clients now with prospective stuff in November, December. You should be filling up your January meetings in November and December, right? Don't try to force people to meet with you then. Like push stuff out to January, load up your January, right? If you haven't tested out, LinkedIn automation and content, now is the time to build that strategy and start building the momentum because it'll take you 2 to 3 months to really kind of hit that next level. Like you can start getting leads right away, but it takes a couple months. Like that snowball effect is huge. So I have people starting with me now that their Q1 is going to be ridiculous because they're laying the foundation now. They're getting leads and meetings now, but they're going to get even more in Q1 because they're just intentional about like, I'm not waiting. I'm not pushing this off. I'm doing this now.
Sure. We were helping a firm owner earlier this week that we were looking at where his business is coming from in 2025. And we realized there's a lot of meat on the bone there, still at that same client.
Yeah.
And he added in contract staffing just a few months ago. And as he started to get his sea legs and started to get this going, he's realizing, wait a minute, this stacks on top of it and it builds, brick by brick. And he turned around and he's got half a dozen people on assignment at this account that 6 months ago he had done zero contract staffing. And so now he's got more hooks into his client. He's got more wallet share within their spend. And frankly, he's more valuable to that organization because he's providing more service to them.
Yeah. I love it. And I think that word value, right?
Yeah.
Am I valuable to my clients? How can I add more value? Now, your current clients are going to give you the best intel, right? And and if you don't know where to start with your best clients. right?
Mhm.
Especially with staffing. You and I talked about that last week. Was that's what you talked about on my podcast, right? Start with the low hanging fruit, right? And that's the benefit of people partnering with you. You've been in the game, in the space, you've been in their shoes. So not only can you handle all the payroll, the back office, you don't have to worry about that, which is godsend for someone like me that hates paperwork, right? But it's like strategically, you can talk about like, hey, the low hanging fruit opportunities are right there. Here's how to go have the conversations and just dig in, and you can think whatever you want, but you want to ask the questions, be curious on how do your clients view you is more important than anything, because then that's where you can see the opportunity for market share. And it's also going to give you the ideas on how to market that to people that don't know you. Right.
Yes.
And that's where the best marketing comes from, is when you have those client relationships, those candidate relationships, where you're following up, you're meet to meet, you're not just transactional. Like, transactional recruiters have a really hard time with marketing because there's no depth, there's no soul to kind of what they do. The consultative recruiters do so well. And especially in staffing, where it can feel like it can be hard to be consultative. I mean, automation marketing does wonders for consultating people in staffing, because they're so good at what they do, taking care of their clients. They're getting that marketing out there of like, hey, here's how we work with clients and the quality of the work and the thought process. I mean, that's where the magic is. I think there's just never been a better time to be a great recruiter, right? And a great staffing company, because you have so many ways to leverage the work that you're doing on a day-to-day basis.
Mm. Make it known. One of the questions, I think I heard you offer this question. I thought it was a great one. If you want to know what your customer thinks of you, ask them if they'll be a reference, if they'll go on record
Yeah.
and be a reference for you to help bring in a new customer, and listen to what they say and how enthusiastically or lack of enthusiasm they provide that answer.
I love that. Here's another one that I do. If you think of a client and you wouldn't ask them for a recommendation, why?
Mm. Oh, wow. Yeah. Fill in that answer. Why?
Yeah.
I love
A-
that.
And the answer there for me has been, sometimes it's not a bad thing. Sometimes, and I've talked to clients where I think sometimes I put my own expectation of what I feel like success was in our engagement matched with what they
Mm.
actually got out of it. And it's not always a bad thing, is what I've learned. And I'm like, I wish they implemented maybe a couple of these things differently, or did or more in line with what I coached. But to them, I gave them 3 other things that were amazing for them in their season in life. So I think that the answer is just embrace that, right? And I'm just like,
Mhm.
hey, are we recommendation worthy yet? And I just ask, right? Like,
Mhm.
I'm just curious. And sometimes people are like, you know what, like, I want some of these things to hit the account first, right? And some people
Right.
like kind of talking about that, want to be, and some people are like, oh my God, yes. Like, yeah, just the fact that like you showed me this, and that already, like, absolutely. Right. So there's different types of recommendations too, right? In coaching and all, you see, a lot of coaches want to, oh, I help this person 10x and 20x. And I do all that stuff as well, because it's true, right? But I also tell people, tell me the truth in recommendation. If I helped with your mindset, with your workflow, if I upskilled you, that matters too, right? Because that's going to be long-term ROI, right? And so there's different ways to look at it, but if you just would refuse to look at it in general, like, that's going to be a good signal for you to, I'd say, dig into that, right? Like,
Mhm.
don't just avoid it.
It's a great litmus test. I think there's also that when you talked about spray and pray, we've heard that forever. It doesn't take a ton of clients to make a great living in this business. And if you can hone that down and then really stay close to those clients, build that moat around them and outserve that client base, they'll be clients for life.
Clients for life. I mean, you can send 10,000 connection requests a year on LinkedIn. You could post 200 times. You could connect with 2,500 of those people, get replies from 500 to 1,000 of them. Right? I'm just average, maybe
Yeah.
automation numbers. And that doesn't include profile views, all that, people that don't even respond that you could follow up with. Like, you can't get 5 clients from that if you're honed in on your ICP. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like,
Right.
if and everyone kind of tell, I'm great on sales calls, I'm great and all that. Okay, well then, if you're that great, put in the system and the approach, and you'll do it, right? And it will happen, right? But people talk themselves out of it and want to get different tech stacks and everything else like that. It's like, really, you just need the right strategy, right? The right approach,
Mhm.
and when you get opportunities, you need the right solution, the right contracts, all that stuff, right? Like yourself, you need right back office to go make it happen. And then once you have that, like you just scale it from there. Like, it, to your point, it's simple. It's just hard to execute
Yeah.
consistently. And we're humans, and so we're incredible at overcomplicating things. But you really break down the math, it's just simple. It's just staying with it and just
Yeah.
being patient, but like persistent also every day. And you can't predict when you're going to get that call. Hey, it's finally time. Here's 10 roles. Right. But it happens all the time. But people give up before they get a chance to have that realization.
Yeah, and another nugget I pulled from one of your speeches was, don't hide behind the tech. Use the tech to get you where you want to be, but don't hide behind it, which to me goes back to basics, right?
It's not going to solve your problems. If you're saying this tech didn't work, this tool didn't work, that is my messaging and content is not good, and it's not hitting my market every single time. It's to a T. And I think be careful where you place blame. The best recruiters, the clients I see that get the most ROI, they take full ownership on everything that goes, and they know that someone like I'm a catalyst, right? And I take ownership on my side of things. There's a big responsibility as a coach, consultant, trainer, an agency. Don't get me wrong, right? But the clients that take full ownership over everything get the best results, and they are the ones that end up getting the best clients.
Always, yeah. So hey, we're coming up to the end of our time here.
Yeah.
As folks look at how to improve their toolkit, add to their skill set, how do they reach out to you? How do they engage with you? And how would you recommend they do that?
Connect with me on LinkedIn. Shoot me a message if you saw me on here, right? From us talking and all that. You can book a call. There's a booking link on the headline on my LinkedIn page. You can go to digitalrecruiter.io and learn more there. We have the Digital Recruiter Academy. We have our LinkedIn Sprint. We can work with you one-on-one. Our goal is to help you, point you in the right direction. Right? I always say with a coach, with a trainer, with an agency, work with someone that you are open to learning from and that you're not going to be disagreeable with and that you respect. So whether it's me or someone else, vet properly, right? Just like you expect your clients to vet you, vet coaches, agencies properly, and then go for it. But reach out to me, contact me if you have any questions. You can talk with my team. We'll point you in the right direction, and we'll tell you what we think you're ready for or not ready for.
Love it. Well, Clark, thanks for your time today. Thanks for putting good stuff into the universe for recruiters. I think the message you put out there only helps everybody that takes that message and puts it to good use. Thanks for being here today, and look forward to next time.
John, appreciate you having me. This is super fun as always, and keep doing the good work at Signature. You guys just do great work and a great service. I never heard one bad thing, so keep the good work going, and we'll talk soon, my friend.
Will do. Take care.
All right, bye.